Going live. You are live on YouTube. Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Mason Sousa. This Kristen Surman and Josh Deering is joining us. All former
Hello.
producers of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Yeah, we have a lot to get to, guys. The last time we spoke, Kristen and myself, we basically just gave one big pat on the back of the entire station. It was very disgusting watching it back. I'm like, what are we doing to ourselves?
Because
Sucking up to a place we're not there anymore. But this show is completely different. No, I'm kidding. But no, we have a lot to get to, including real news that has happened at the station we will touch on. We all have thoughts on that. But first, Josh, let's hear from you because it kind of Kristen and myself kind of detailed our background. We definitely want to hear your stories behind the scenes, things that might be interesting. I know you have a million of them since you were there basically since day one, right?
I was at the Sports Hub on day one, yeah. And I was there in the whole lead up and test shows and all the fun things that went into making that station go live. It was pretty interesting.
So you were saying it before the show, like right before you went on, you were like TNR's second intern ever.
I was TNR's second intern ever, and it was right when they had moved to the Brighton studios. So they had been at like the Fenway Park studios, ComAv studios, not too long before I got there. And I jumped in for TNR, had to be 6 months into their time in Boston radio.
So you, and then what year did you end up leaving again?
It was December 2017 I left.
Wow. So that was basically a full 10
5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was
Well,
I was at the
5 years.
station
Yeah,
for
yeah.
10 years. I was at the BCN at the end and the Sports Hub at the start.
What do you want to share? Like any with specific hosts, specific shows you worked on, maybe behind the scenes, things that things tensions getting hot, things getting hot and heavy, people coming to blows almost. This is just a conversation. This is whatever we feel might be interesting to the people.
I mean, I worked with every single person that worked at that station early on, like, going back to the Tangway days, Gresh, people that came through quickly and were there for a flash in the pan and gone. All the producers that came up, I think I trained a lot of them at the time. So,
Yeah.
Can I interrupt
a lot of things
real quick? Josh's Rolodex of guests
Yeah.
saved me so many times when it came to booking guests. I think you set it up for all of us part-time, you had quite a list, and I was so grateful to get all those contacts. I'm like, oh, so clutch.
But working on the night show, we were the only show that essentially didn't have guests lined up for us. You're working on all the other shows, they have the weekly guests, they have guests every day. There's somebody scheduled for once a day. So they don't have to do a lot of guest booking for the most part, the producers there. But working the night show, you got 5 hours to fill, which is longer than anybody else had to fill. And there was a lot less call volume. So you had to have a lot of people that were willing to come on at 8, 9 o'clock at night and talk for a few minutes. So yeah, there's a lot of effort that went into getting that Rolodex going.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Working that night show where you said an extra hour, you just detailed it perfectly there. You get less call volume. You are doing so much more than just producing a show. You are like the marketer of the show, like your persuasion, getting into callers like, oh, you can't do this week. What about next week? Hey, how about we get you on at 8:20? Let's fit you in for 8:35. Like your skills beyond radio, are improving because you're working that show and you need to go through so many other hoops per se to fill a show.
Yeah, and it's every day, all day, especially before there was Celtics or Bruins games on the network. Is in those times it was 5 hours, 5 days a week, every day. So it was they had to book a lot of guests, a lot of content, and you couldn't say no to a guest. It's like if they couldn't do it tonight, you try to get them in tomorrow or the next day or next week, and just keep going and trying to keep propagating the show in the future. So you had less to do each day.
I want to say I think I learned that from you too, because your black book of guests, which is I'm sure that's how the media began. They probably saw your black book oh, okay, we got to do one of our own. But yeah, they can't do tonight, ask about tomorrow, ask about the next day, find out for the entire week. So you have that connection, you can keep that person on the show, and you have a show prepared for the future. So yeah, I think that's one of the many things I learned from you. Absolutely. In being a solid producer, a valuable person for that station.
Yeah, it was, people don't appreciate how much work went into a lot of these shows and working the shows. There's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and you just got to keep hunting for guests, especially when you get ones to respond to you, which is not always the case. Like there's so many people that you could call, text, email, and they would just never reply. So when you got somebody that showed even a little bit of interest, you had to be, all right, when can we make this happen?
Yeah. We're best buddies. Yeah, that's a good point too. I would say like 99% of the people, besides the ones that are in the business on that show or like, know us, don't know the effort that it makes to, you're not just pushing buttons behind the scenes. You're doing so much more to make that show right. Okay, I want to hear it. Yeah, you piqued my interest in the pre-show. Tell us about this almost Maz and Felger fist fight. What happened? Can you detail the scenes? This happened long time ago, right?
This happened a long time ago in the first few months of the stations when, nobody had any idea that the station would become the wild overnight success that it was going to be. And, people were working together for the first times and trying to figure everybody out and figure out their roles and who was the lead dog and who's, how they're going to play off each other. And something happened very early on in the first few months of Felger and Maz where going to a commercial break, Tony or Felger said something, they instigated something, they crossed the line and, they took offense to it. And in the commercial break, they were standing up out of their chairs, screaming at each other about credentials and, who, their history and what they've done. And, they were, it seemed really serious. And everybody in the producer's room, I was working the DA show that night. I think I just walked into that room to get the commercial log to see what we had for live reads. And like, this is going on. And everybody's like, whoa, like this may not make it this year. Like, forget about like lasting long-term. Like this could be the end of the show coming up right now. Like we could be witnessing it, that if they don't want to work together, then, and it was wild. And, they quickly settled down, but they were at each other's throats for a good 2 minutes in a commercial break, yelling at each other. And then something happened. They both sat down and then mics flipped back on and it was like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. They got it out of their systems. And then
and that's the best thing to do in radio is tensions can be high at times. So you got to have your blow ups and then mic goes on, you act like nothing ever happened and you go on with the show. And that's what you do.
Yeah, it's one thing if your egos got the best of them, which it seems like both of them did at the time. But yeah, we got 3-4 minutes to yell about it, and then, like you just said, red lights back on, back to being professional. Move on.
And I'm sure they had conversations after that, but they quickly found their chemistry and found their roles. And look at this, like what are we, 13 years, 14 years past the launch of the station, and they're crushing it. Yeah, and I'm sure they look back at that day and they laugh about it and like can you believe this ever happened? And,
yeah. Like imagine if one of them actually had the thought of like, I can't work with this guy, I'm going to go somewhere else. And like, we would have had no idea what it could have become.
I mean, this was at the time, like right after the start of the station, who knows where Tony Maz was on the list of people to host with Felger at the time. I know they definitely tried out other people and, Tony probably came in with a chip. Felger definitely had a chip to show that he was the big dog and, everything. And it was a learning process and they figured it out. And it was still early days of the sports hub. Was kind of crazy.
That's interesting too. Do you happen to know the other who might have been the two share if it wasn't going to be Maz?
Oh, man.
Back in the day?
I'm trying to think. I know they did a couple different test shows with different hosts, and some of them were at the other station at the time. Some of them, they tried out some things, and I don't know what offers were made. I don't know who was seriously considered. I don't know, but
yeah,
Maz was one of the many names on that list, and it ended up being Maz.
Kristen, do you have any times where like you felt like it was between hosts or producers, like while you were there, that it was getting like way too tense than normal?
I haven't witnessed anything.
Okay.
Not that I can think of. I'm sure I know there has been, but
I
didn't witness anything.
Because I was lucky enough to be the lead producer for when Jones and Cattles first blew up. So which is obviously legendary now, infamous. The old Gunner talk about let's go 19-0. Oh no, it's a lazy conversation. Jones like, why not? Oh, Gunner talk in July. Let's do that. And then I remember what I remember from it live. Obviously it's saved. Like I could probably go back and find the whole thing, but I remember it was maybe first segment of the second hour. So it's like we still have 4 more hours of these guys together, or 3 more hours, whatever it was. And I remember it being like 7:22 on the clock. First break still not taken. And there was a situation where, Cattles would get his piece in, and then Jones does this every show when there was a two guy, not that there is anymore, we'll talk about that in a moment, but he would always like kind of wrap up the segment. You know, he would like say blah 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 blah, and then with your calls, whatever. But this specific segment, Cattles took offense to every like final two sentences that Jones was saying, and so he would chime in again. And then Jones, being the host, needs to get the final word in the segment. Not needs to, and that's not a knock on him. Just like he's getting it ready to throw the break by closing up the segment, putting the closing argument, whatever the case may be. But it kept going back and forth, back and forth. Jones would say a final two sentences. Cattles needed to jump in. And like, you know, just, and then it was bickering back and forth, back and forth. Then one time I remember, and this isn't seen obviously because it was not Twitch at the time, Jones just goes back in his seat and he's like get it all out of your system, like basically towards Cattles. And Cattles is still going. Then it's like 23 and a half, 7:24, still first
past the break time.
Oh yeah, oh my God. And then I think about this. I don't know if I should have just let them go until they figured it out, but who knows when they were gonna. There was a momentary pause and I hit the brake. I went to break and it was like cold. It was not thrown to break. Cattles was in the middle of like doing something. He would pause. He would think of something else, say something else. And then it was like 2 seconds. I hit it.
You're done.
And then he tried to talk again. So I felt bad for that, cutting him off. And then, yeah, he got up. Cattles did, put his headset down, mother effing down the hallway. And I'm just like, I forget who was this two guy next, or the second producer, I should say. But it was wow. It was something. And then I see Jones in the back and he's like, he's thinking about the next break. He's like, I don't even know what to do right now. It's like, we just hit the break at 25. It's like, what should we do? Like, oh, well, this is going to be a 5-minute segment. Sorry, coming up. And then headlines at 35. But yeah, that was cool to witness that. Just guys just absolutely blow up and what to go from there. And then, like I said, they had 3.5 more hours left, which was, they eventually calmed down. You know, Cattles did this effing guy segment or whatever it was. So like, you know, but yeah, things were something. That was special. That was a special night. That was
such a great blow up too. That audio was awesome.
Yeah, it was played on every other station the next day, or not station. You know, TNR talked about it. Zone Beetle talked about it. Yeah, everyone had fun with it. I think even Felgram Maz brought it up for a little bit.
I mean, going into that situation, you knew that was going to happen with Nick and Adam. It was just like their personalities, you know.
Yeah,
it was going to lead to blow ups, and everybody was kind of waiting for that first real one to happen, and then there were a couple more, but I don't think there were any as big as that first one. Yeah, because Cattles was like, all right, I know what I'm dealing with, but I'm not stepping down. Like, I'm taking this stance. If you want to take the negative stance, I'll take this stance, and then little shots here and there, and then, you know, you just move on. Like you said, like, you know, the break comes, the red light comes on for the next segment, back to being professional, or try to at least. So I mean, good times. Back in those days, it would have been something to have a camera, just not the live Twitch stream, God, yeah, but just a commercial break Twitch stream, so you can see the studio action at the time and see like the
best things happen off air. Like, I mean, you know, the most entertaining things might happen in between breaks, and you know, it's quick, but yeah, those are moments that are probably the most memorable for me.
I don't know if I should say this, but you know, here we are. I'm not going to say exactly who they're talking to. I forget it's not a guest. It actually may be a coach or someone on a team that they're talking to, and this is during Zone Beetle. Like, they're just like tossing the ball back and forth while the interview is going on. Ask a question, no, just toss the football back and forth, like not really paying attention. And that wouldn't happen all the time. Maybe it was just the one time I was, you know, the second producer that day, but it's just like that laid back of,
no, that would happen.
To your point of like, yeah, just camera in between segment, or like when things aren't supposed to be on them right now, what exactly are they doing? It was entertaining from where I was standing.
They'll play wiffle ball in the parking lot sometime.
Yeah.
Right. And like, they just run out and play wiffle ball for 5 minutes.
Sprint down the hallway.
Like, yeah.
Bunch of kids. Yeah, we were all a bunch of kids there.
I mean, Hardy was the one with all the games. If you wanted like a Sports Hub studio game, it was like true, you talked to Hardy, and there was like
the Frisbee champion.
There's like the ball and the cup, and the producer. He had, like,
that's right. Yeah. Like, they made
Hardy had frisbees and
yeah,
everything. Hardy started it all. If there was a game going on, Hardy started it, and then it just kind of went on to every other show after that, and everybody would be playing it for a week or two. And
yep.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Crazy. Yeah, I feel like we were like I didn't feel like we had to be tamed downstairs in Brighton. Like when we moved to Dorchester, Josh, you weren't in Dorchester, but like Dorchester, I felt like we were in this fishbowl. Like everyone would just walk by and I don't know, like I felt like a guest there. Like I never felt at home. Like in Brighton, I was like, yeah, I can, whatever. Like I didn't go not, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
like this is our man cave. Like
this
we're
is our
just having
place.
fun
And
down
like,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, we were hidden in the corner, and the only reason people would ever come down there was to use the bathroom. So they weren't paying attention to what was going on. They were just trying to get in and out of the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. That maybe that environment, that like psychological, that made everyone feel more laid back, and they could just say what. Not that I don't think hosts were being held back, whether they moved to
Right.
Dorchester or Waltham or where they are now. Just that kind of like, all right, let's just relax. No one's watching us, even though thousands upon thousands of people are listening to us. It's just let's just chill and talk about whatever. And I think that's the best. Like this isn't just radio. I think this is just in business, when in your career, when you get to the point where you don't care and you just do you, like that's where your best work comes out. And I think that's similar to I think that was me when I've got some airtime at the Sports Hub. And like this is actually a story I meant to say last time, but this is like to detail how awesome a guy Jones is. It was the summer of 2016. It was the World Cup coming up. And I had like these thoughts of like, I printed out these things I'm going to pitch to Jones, like, hey, let me do a World Cup segment with you. And like, I barely got the words out of my mouth. He turned to me, he's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, he's totally down for it, which like made me respect him so much. He's like, you haven't heard me talk at all on air. Are you sure you want me to do this? And obviously, I sounded like it was my first time on air talking to him, and we did a couple segments, but he was totally open to it. Absolutely. And, but eventually over time, when you're not nervous, you're not scared, if you plan, then you can be like, I'm just going to talk. And that's where the best stuff comes from. I think, like, I'll bring it up again. I don't like to bring it up. Other people can bring it up for me, but like the whole Time Lord little take, like that I didn't care. I was just like writing in the pre-show email to Felger, I was like, yeah, Robert Williams is going to be the next Wilt Chamberlain, and here's why, blah, 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 blah. And then like, he's like, all right, this mother effort, like we got to roast him on air. And I'm like, come at me. Like, I'll tell you, like he had 4 blocks in this game. There was a 7-game span where he was leading the league in rebounds, and I'm like, whatever. And then, having the confidence, once you have the confidence and the not caring attitude, like you sound the best. That's my opinion, at least.
I mean, a big part of radio is just trying and failing, right? It's like even the worst ideas that if you bomb on air, it turns into a funny bit, and you can make fun of it, and it's content. And if you crush it out of the ballpark, you do it again. And it's just like one of these things that you don't know until you try it. And if it fails, it fails. What's the worst thing? It's 5 minutes that somebody is going to instantly forget.
Or you become the next.
Or you become or it lives on forever, in which case it's funny.
I guess that's a good thing. Yeah.
But it's, it's all content. It's all.
You're right. Absolutely right. Do you want to talk about the real stuff that happened in the last 2 weeks at the station? Yeah. So in case no one knows, which a lot of people do, if you listen to the Sports Hub, Beasley made a lot of layoffs, more specifically in Boston rather than any other market around the country, which is shocking, considering that 98.5 The Sports Hub has been one of the best stations, ratings-wise, revenue-wise, in the past few years now. So obviously Christian Arcand was let go, which was an absolute shock to everyone, and so was Mike Lockhart, number one right-hand man of Rich Shirtley on Toucher and Rich. Both of those guys are incredibly valuable to the station. And I don't know, I guess we'll start there and then talk about what happened since with Mike on the morning show. But like when you guys first saw that or heard that on social media, like, I mean, I don't know your initial, Kristen, why don't you go first? Like your first initial reaction, because I think we texted the screenshots to each other and we're like, this can't be real.
Like what? Yeah. Well, I mean, I really felt with Christian, I mean, it almost happened to him 2 years ago, right?
Right.
He was going through that a second time, which I was really bummed for him. And, again, we already talked about it, but like night show, 5 hours, like long nights. He works weekends. You can put him with anybody. He can work alone, talented guy. And then again, Lockhart, we were praising him the last time too about all the stuff that he does to prepare for Toucher and Rich, getting all the sound and the like. There's so much that goes into it that people don't realize. And again, did the fantasy football show for how many years? I don't think he's doing it anymore. I think it's just Tucker now, right? I think I saw
at least today, yeah. But I guess he's coming back Monday, so I don't know if he's going to come back Sunday or not. But Tucker had like kind of like an emotional statement today about Mike today, which maybe means he's not back, but I'm not sure.
I actually do think I saw Lockhart tweet that something along, let me see, he wrote something I think yesterday about how it's been a good run. Let me pull it up.
That he's done with the fantasy show, or isn't going back to it.
I thought I saw it. I can't find it, but yeah, I saw something along the lines that it's just going to be Tucker, but unless I don't know, maybe that'll change. But yeah, no,
we were talking about both of them on the show we did last month or 3 weeks ago, and then a week later, both of those guys go. We're like, what? How is this possible? And yet you said it, Kristen, like not a lot of people know what they do, and that unfortunately included corporate. So I don't know, Josh, you have any thoughts on at least that, and then we'll talk about what happened later with Lockhart coming back.
Yeah, so I've been out of the radio game for a little bit, but anytime I see layoffs in the industry, it pisses me off. And especially when it comes to the sports stuff. I was angry that day to see these things, to see that Christian Arcand and Mike Lockhart got fired for absolutely no reason and nothing of their own doing. It's not that the station was underperforming. It's not that the station should have had to make cuts. It was just somebody in some office, corporate wise, just looked at the numbers and said, oh, well, we tried to get rid of the second night host a few years ago. Well, let's get rid of him now. Well, this morning show has 3 producers. Why do they have 3 producers? Let's get rid of one of them now. It's it's clueless. If you talk to anybody that works in that building, especially with what Mike Lockhart does on that show, he did everything. And that show functions because of all the work that he puts in that, nobody else in that show has the ability to do or really wants to do, because that's the time consuming, tedious stuff. And when I saw that, I was upset that day. I was pissed. I was texting a few people. I texted Mike, I texted Christian, that just sucks. And it made zero sense to me, especially when it came out a few days before with the ratings and the money that they make. And it made no sense. And I'm glad Mike is coming back. He deserves to come back. I hope Christian comes back soon because he deserves to be there. And, it's just when people don't pay attention to what's going on in their own company, in their own offices, on their own shows that are making them tons of money, it's sad to me.
It's borderline negligent. When you talk about a company that they said it multiple times, and it's not to toot their own horn, it's just to plead their case. They were number 5 out of all the stations in the entire country. So they are in the top 1% of revenue. They make the most money out of one of the most money-driven stations out of anyone in the country. And you want to take 2 from that station. That it's absolutely baffling, and it still is. If you were listening on Touch of Rich talked about it when it happened, and so did Fred. And then a week later or so, or whenever it was, actually this was just a few days ago, I believe, maybe Tuesday, I want to say, after talking with corporate, I'm paraphrasing what Rich said, back and forth, saying I would have to come in, whatever, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning to do what I did and what I do and Lockhart does, which, Lockhart is there at 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. We know from being overnight board ops, we know what that second producer does for that morning show, because that is so much production that goes on there. And you are one of the most talented guys at the station, if not the most, when it comes to producing and, working your magic behind the board there, behind the scenes, behind the glass. Just saying after no, he's like, all right, I'll pay his salary. Can you imagine that? And obviously that shows how much he means to that show, to Rich. And it came to that point where the company is like, okay, yeah, the employee can pay for the employee. And not only that, the thing that got me was another administrative fee to do it. What are you doing? You look so awful
And I'm
doing
sorry,
that.
the 4 articles a day. What? Like, that is just.
Yeah, not only can you pay to keep your own guy going, we're going to tack on more work for you to do to have this honor to pay for your own employee.
Because you're only the top show in the country. I mean, that's, well, just, I don't understand. Yeah.
It's pathetic. But the thing is, like we talked about it, like the 4 articles a day or a week or whatever it is, that actually is so good for TNR. And here's why. Because the fans that are in the know, the fans that know why they're doing this, it's a constant reminder of how bad corporate looks. And it's like the constant, like, yeah, we're on your side, Touch and Rich, whatever you want to do. If you want to leave next year, we'll follow you. I think that's the constant reminder. And so this is like, listen, Beasley, you got to make this right. You got to make this right now, because if this continues like for more than a month, a year, till whenever their contract is up, I don't know. Yeah. Yikes. I'm just speculating as a fan, as a listener, and does not take a brain surgeon to read between the lines. You're going to lose some people because of a move like this, and that is so short-sighted. And you may have dug your own grave, because that is pathetic. It really is. And like, I understand cuts need to be made, layoffs, if someone's making too much money, whatever, but you're gonna quote unquote punish a top 1% station in the entire country, your biggest moneymaker. How dumb is that? Incredibly dumb.
And unfortunately, that's the way the radio has been forever. It's
true.
like, doesn't matter how successful your station is, when it's corporate decides it's time to cut some money, they're going to go down and not look at what station. They're just going to be like, oh, what's their role? Why are they making this much? Get rid of them. And they're not going to, they don't care. They don't look, they don't follow up with conversations. They just make this decision blindly and go with it.
Yeah.
And, here we are with it. Question: have you guys ever worked a show like filling in, producing on Toucher and Rich?
Yes.
Like,
One.
Like the days that I would do it and Mike was in there, it was like awesome. Like I could show up, I could like get my stuff set up, and like the days I would do it and Mike Lockhart wasn't there, it was like horrible.
Oh yeah.
There's just an avalanche of work to do, and it's like, yeah, and it's the people that should know. Like you have one conversation with somebody in that building, like, oh, what do they do? And like, oh, they do all that.
Yeah. That producer position, Lockhart's position, the second producer on TNR,
and we only pay him this much.
Hands down, I'd probably say double than the second most important producer. And that, again, that's not a knock at anyone. Those are facts. Like, based on if you are around that station and you know what each person does, their role, it just is what it is. And it just comes down to, unfortunately, not knowing the ins and outs. You don't need to know the entire ins and outs. And again, like, I understand corporate making a decision. I do, because God forbid if you get programming department involved in making this decision and that's made known, then you have a mutiny, a coup, if you will. If that were to be heard from the program director, whatever the case may be, that they were somewhat involved with this decision, that could ruin the station. I don't want to say ruin, but that's just another bad layer to that onion. So I understand corporate kind of keeping them in the dark and making this decision, but you have to find out who you're letting go at the very least. Like, what do they do? What is their value to the station? And it looks like they didn't do either of that. So I don't know. Is there any more to that onion you want to peel back? Because I think that's basically all of it.
No, I think that's it. And I think, Rich, when he was explaining what had happened and what had to be done to get Lockhart back, I think you could just hear the disappointment in his voice. He summed it all up right there. Like, you really don't have to explain. Anyone can figure out, like, it was a dumb move. Like, just, it's too bad. But I'm glad it worked out for Lockhart. Sucks that it came to that. And Christian, he's gonna find something. He'll be okay.
Yeah, and Josh said it too. Like, we get it. Layoffs happen. This is a very volatile industry, sports radio, TV, whatever the case may be, industry. But again, it just goes to the final point of that is clearly your moneymaker. and you're gonna
Yeah.
mess with that.
Yeah, all you had to do is
Silly.
not F things up with the Sports Hub right now. It's like it's a beast.
It
just
runs
rolls
itself
right now.
Like, let them do their thing. Let them, it's just, it's been a success for a reason.
Yeah, until it shows signs of slowing down, until it shows signs of coming off the rails, like,
Yeah.
keep it going. Feed that beast. Like this.
If they were failing the last 6 months, year, maybe I'd understand that. I'd understand that better than I do now.
They're pulling 10s instead of 20s. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, oh yeah. If they're still doing a 15, what is that stupid number? Yeah. Still an unbelievable number, like numbers that, stations would dream of. Getting all the Nielsen ratings jargon out of the way there. But I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is wishful thinking. They may feel the error of their ways and make it right, because if they'll just like move on to the next thing and kind of let that fester over there, then when contracts are up, you'll hear about it. I mean, that's just my thinking. That's all.
I mean, unfortunately though, there's not entirely a lot of options if you want to stay in market to really negotiate with your, like, you're at the Sports Hub now and things are going well and you are thinking about leaving. It's, well, who's going to bid for you? Like, where's the competition? Where's, like, who has the money to steal somebody right now? And it's like a tough thing to, as much as people may say like, oh yeah, so-and-so could leave the Sports Hub, they probably won't.
That's like, why would you? Like, that's where you want to be. So like, where else would you want to go?
There's not a lot of negotiating leverage.
Maybe it's me watching too much wrestling, but like, I feel like if they just found like some incredible financial backer, like, oh, let's start our own station, let's do it. I don't know. Is that a pipe dream? I could it possibly be the third competition? I have no idea. But that's just like, that would be an incredible story for the business in general. That'd be something to follow. If it comes to that, I do not know what these people are thinking, the guys at the Sports Hub, whatever the case may be, but that would be, with the ridiculous numbers that they're pulling, if anyone wanted to start a new station, time might be now. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Any other crazy other things, stories that people might find interesting with certain hosts? Everyone loves to hate on Jones, but apparently he's the nicest guy in the world. Not apparently, he is. He truly is.
I mean, I think you got to say Rich Shirtley was the nicest guy on the planet after.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, Jones the most philanthropist guy.
I mean, but what I don't think people appreciate about Jones is how funny he is.
Yeah.
Like,
he knows exactly what he's doing too, to get like during commercial breaks, like he's laughing his ass off when he knows that the audience is pissed, or like they're calling in and giving him crap. Like, he knows what he's doing. Like, he does a good job at getting people riled up. But yeah, he's funny. He's got a good sense of humor. Josh, you worked with all those night guys. I mean, they all came right through. Yeah.
DH, Hertz, Jones, Keith, Cattles. Yeah. So.
The days with Keith, that was fun. The Alien Minute, Ryan and Weymouth would come out, Area 98.5.
Where is Ryan and Weymouth?
I don't know. This is a call out to Ryan and Weymouth. Please call the
station. Oh my God.
The single best caller in the history of the Sports Hub.
That was kind of in my notes. Like, do you guys have favorite callers or people that you look forward to talking to on the phone when they'd call in, or like, do you keep in touch with any of them? Like, I don't know. There's a couple that, like, on Twitter or something you might talk with somewhat regularly.
Well, there's a couple that come into the brewery from time to time. That'd be like,
nice.
I haven't seen in a while, but yeah, like, I don't know, like, callers that are missed. I mean, Ryan and Weymouth was always fun because you would talk to him for a few minutes off air.
Yeah.
I can't believe. Oh my God. Yeah, we need to find out where he's at. But I remember during COVID, I actually did a Zoom call just to talk with Maria in Watertown. She always calls into the hockey show, right? First call all the time. So she was just talking to me because she always wanted to kind of get into radio, wasn't really sure what to do. So she just we did a Zoom call and she was just like asking me about my time at the Sports Hub and stuff. And I was like, well, honestly, like, I think the podcast is the way to go, because she is very knowledgeable about hockey. Like, she always, would bring it on those Saturday morning calls, and she knew her stuff. But yeah, like, I've heard from her randomly. Mike and Wooburn, I feel like he'd come to the Kowloon with us sometimes when we had our big group dinners. But who else I'm trying to think. I don't know. There's so many that I can't.
There's only one I met, Cam and Taunton, and it was at the grocery store, and it was the weirdest thing. I bet he remembers this story. This was a long time ago. I forget when. I think I must have been. I don't even know how or why he recognized me. Maybe it was just like because I was just the camera in the back on the midday show, and maybe he saw it there. I don't know. I didn't ask him, but and the only reason why I recognized him is because I think earlier that day he was like out on the golf course or something. So he had a video and it was just something I scrolled like, oh, okay, that's what he looks like. It was literally like the same day of the day before. So like, not that I remembered that, but like it stuck with me. Yeah. Then I see him in the grocery store and he's kind of staring at me. And I'm like, that guy kind of looks a little familiar, but I'm like, all right, I go on, do my thing. And apparently he works there. So like I'm going around the back, I pay for my stuff and I'm like, wait a minute, I think I know who that is now. So I see him in a section over here, like he's helping with someone. Then I stand there and we make eye contact. I'm like, you Cam and Taunton? He's like, yeah, you're Mesa. I'm like, oh, no shit. So that was kind of funny. Yeah, that's the only caller I met like in real life. But yeah, you know, there's so many good things we can say about Ryan Weymouth. I think it's one of those things like you don't want to meet your heroes kind of deal. You don't really want to know what he looks like or who he is exactly. It's just the incredible mystique of, yeah, give me some alien stories, man, some conspiracy so we can move along this night show at 11 p.m.
And those Keith and Jones days, they would become unhinged. It was so much fun. Those
incredible good times. Was there anything specific of that show that you remember, the Jones and Keith era? I just obviously mentioned the alien thing.
I mean, like when they would do, I mean, I had some of the biggest laughs of my life, like working that show, and just it would go off the rails, like the John and Susan stuff that they would do.
Oh, yeah,
Keith going into Bigfoot and like the real like early Kiefer Madnesses or things that came off of the Kiefer feature, the creature features from Hardy and Troop that Keith would do. Like, yeah, those shows would just go wild. And it was just, you never knew where it was going when you started the show. And it was a lot of fun to work those shifts.
Yeah, it truly was. I have a Felger story real quick. Like you mentioned, the Felger Maz fight. This was one of the first times I had the chance to be the lead producer. So both James Stewart, Billy Lanny were out. So this was the second time, I'm sorry, because I remember the first time it was like Memorial Day. It was after, you know, I think the Celtics lost this game 7 against the Cavs. I want to say it was the first one. So they were out of the playoffs and that was the show. Whatever, like, you know, Felger came in specifically for that day. He was supposed to be out, but because they lost that in that fashion, he came in. It was like him, Marshall Hook, and I want to say Tim McCone or someone like this. So that show was fine. But then like maybe a month later, I had another chance to do it. And to set the whole stage here, the first time I just gave them like, hey, whatever, minute left, go. Like I didn't touch anything on the board. They turned on their own mics. I played sound when it was called for. Everything went great. The second time now, 2:00 hit Felger Maz board like usual, glorified G's going. And then I see Felger kind of like just sitting there looking up at the TV because there's 3 TVs above where they are. And we're going kind of deep into the song at this point. It's like 30 seconds. And I'm looking at him, just waiting for him to make a move. He makes eye contact with me. Talk back. We good? Yeah. Talk back. Yeah, we're good. We're ready for you. Let's go. Waiting another 5-10 seconds. Still looking up at the TV. Looks at me. Gives me one of these like, and I'm like, I do it back to him. I'm like, I look down at the board. I'm like, yeah, we good. Like, it's 45 seconds into the intro here. We gonna start the show here. I didn't say that to him because this is the second time working with him. And then he's back in his chair, like maybe looking at his mic. I think in retrospect, he's looking at his mic now. And then he finally gets up, hits the on button. He's like, all right, Mace, we're going to dance for the whole 4 hours here. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? Like, I'm waiting on you. And then it took me like a couple seconds to realize, like, did he want me to turn his mic on? And like, listen, I will totally turn your mic on. I do it for, you know, half the station. Other hosts like to have their mic on for them. Totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's just their swing of things. Jones, for example, he'll turn on and off his mic himself, so it's like less on the producer, whatever. It's a preference thing. So, but at the same time, the first time I didn't touch your mic once, and now the second time, all of a sudden you want me to turn it on. So it was just like one of those very awkward things where it's like he was waiting for me to turn his mic on. I had no idea what he was waiting for. And it was just a casual like, waiting on you, man. No, waiting on you, like for a whole minute straight. So I don't think we ever talked about that after the fact, but it was guys I told Billy Lanny about it. He gets a good laugh at that from time to time when I would bring it up. But that's probably my favorite Felger story.
What was that thing that you mentioned in the email about how something happened between you and Josh, or Fred made a comment about, what was that story?
Well, that's two different things. So do you?
I don't know.
Do you know what that comment is, Josh? Like, because there's a drop.
You're better than that, Deering.
You're better than that, Derek.
I'm pretty sure it was like some dumb tweet I made, like with a joke that like popped up on their show, and like Fred didn't like it and read it, and I think that's it. I don't think I was in studio that day. I don't think I was working with them. I think I just randomly came across his screen and he made that comment, which from time to time I still get like text messages from people like listening to the show, like, oh, they talked about you today. This happened a few months ago. Like they were having a story about like if a secondary character of the show died, like of Coach, it was like in Cheers. Like somebody died in Cheers, like and like, well, who would that be? And Fred was like, oh, that would be Deering. like somebody that hasn't been on the show in years, but still people remember. Like, oh, great, they're talking about me dying on the show.
Yeah, that's nice. That's very flattering.
I thought it was the same story about something that you were like nervous about with Josh, or some type of weird interaction.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened. So basically,
Go ahead,
I don't
Josh.
even remember what exactly happened, but yeah,
you can fabricate it if you want. Yeah, no, but
fabricate it. Yeah.
So here's the story. It was one of the first times being the lead producer for the Jones Show. This was back at Brighton, maybe, I don't know, 2 years in, not even. So I don't know why I was there so early. Maybe I was nervous and I'm like, I need to get all the sound ready for the show. So I text Josh, I'm like, hey, still trying so hard to get a guest. Do you mind sending me a couple names? Or I'm not sure exactly if that's how I said it. But he's like, all right, sure. Hold on. Let me, get my book or whatever, my Rolodex. Let me get my
Rolodex,
my list of names. Like, all right, no problem. But at the same time, I'm in the Jock Lounge basement, trying to get sound. I get no service on my phone. Sometimes I casually, like, I'll walk out to the parking lot and then text would pop in. I'm like, oh, like I didn't put two and two together. Like it just popped up right there, or realizing I was in bad service or whatever the case may be. So anyway, like, I think he's waiting for my email so he can send me like the list of names from what he has, but I don't see it because I'm in the Jock Lounge and I'm waiting, doing my thing, waiting for the text to pop up on him. Then eventually I go out to the parking lot again, and then texts just flood in from him, maybe 4 or 5 things like, hey, I just, I got to do this thing. So like, hey, send me that email. Still waiting. Like, I don't know exactly what you said, but it was like just, and then I see it pop up one after the other. I'm like, oh shit. Like he's waiting for my response and it's been 2 hours or whatever the case may be.
He had to have been trying to book like a guest for 8:20 and that segment was like still open and was like,
yeah,
hey, can you send me some people? And I probably sent you a bunch and like, you good? All
yeah.
Right, you good?
Yeah.
You need any other names?
Like that.
So you're like,
and he's like, all right, I'm late for the thing I had to do. Thanks. I don't know if that's exactly what you said, but it was like, I felt like such shit because I didn't have service and I couldn't respond to him. So I'm like, so I avoided him like the next month. I'm like, I don't even want to come face to face with him right now. Cause it was something important you had to do and like you missed it or you were late for it or something. I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, that was a little tension between me and Josh in the beginning.
Yeah, we had it out on a commercial break. We're good now, though.
That's it. Yeah, almost, we went face to face, and that was it. But I don't know because Kristen, you started the pre-show email. You wrote a bunch of things.
Let me look back at that.
Or maybe what did I even say? I don't know.
One thing I mentioned was like, what moment like terrified you producing? Like, did you ever have one of those moments where you're like, a curse got through, like swear, you had an incident with dead air, the hotlines blowing up, like
Oh, dead air. I had dead air all the time. And like I would just hit the dump button to kind of fast forward it through so it didn't seem as long. Oh my God.
The Hardy trick.
Oh,
Is
I've
that what
had
that
dead
is?
air a
Yeah,
lot.
that's Hardy in the Sports Hub days when he would run his like, or the PCN days, the 3 to 7. He would notoriously like miss things, and then he'd dump, 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 dump. Right, next
Oh
song,
yeah.
and he would be flawless on air. Nobody would ever know. And I learned that from him. It's like, oh yeah, you ever have like 12 seconds, you can just dump, dump.
Yeah.
So actually, yes, I would do that when I would run games on the weekends. Either I wasn't paying attention, or they called for an ID and I forgot. Like, oh, let me just hit that dumb button twice, and no one ever forgets that they called for it, or whatever the case may be. So probably shouldn't say that, but whatever. Statute of limitations at this point. But I have a bad one. I was running the Bruins game. And again, like I mentioned with Kristen a couple of shows, or the last time we did this, like Howie is awesome. You need Howie on your side. You need to be on Howie's side, because if you're not, he's the most intimidating motherfucker you'll ever know in your life. So something happened mid Bruins game. The board dies. The entire board dies, and they're talking. At least I think they're talking. I hear it on the monitor, but I'm like, I can't go to commercial, and it's about to pop up right now. So I forget what computer was at the side. Was it Vox Pro or something? But for some reason, the log was on there. And this is like, say around this time, say it's November. And over here is, a set of things. I'm like, I have to hit something because they're about to throw to break any second right now. So I click it, and it's like, oh, this Mother's Day, 1-800-Flowers. Like, Jesus, 4 months ago, and like all this crap. And so I'm like talking to Howie, I need you. I'm like, the board died. Like, I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, go to the studio behind you. Gotta whatever, click this. I forget the process, but somehow I get them up. And then I realize, or I find out later, or I call Dennis, whatever the case may be, the engineer comes down after like 30 minutes, like, all right, board's back up. You're good to go. I'm like, great. So without telling Howie, during the next break, I go and switch back. I'm thinking, whatever, no harm, no foul. But something happened along the way where I can't throw to break anymore because I'm back in that studio. And I tell him the story, and he's like, just, you had to stay where you are. And it's like the whole broadcast sounded horrible, I'm sure, like with dead air and Mother's Day commercials 5 months too late. And it's just like, it was very like, I'm fucked at this point. Like, the board fucking dies. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So that was my scariest time producing, for sure.
Yeah, I sometimes when the hotline would call when it wasn't supposed to ring was a
Yeah.
little concerning, because sometimes a guest, will have access to the hotline if you know that someone's going to be calling in soon or whatever. But there was one time someone called in, and it was Jonathan Kraft.
Oh, wow.
Because we were doing headlines and no one mentioned the Revolution score.
Uh-oh.
So I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, but like, I understand, like, but I was like, sometimes you don't realize who's listening sometimes. And you're like, oh gosh, do we do something wrong? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, okay, like, yep, I'll make sure he mentions it next time in his headlines. It's like, yeah, the Revolution won, but I didn't hear it in the score. And I was like, okay, we'll have that in there next time. But it's just like, oh God,
It's like, you better.
Yeah, no, he was rude, but
Yeah,
it was
I'm sure
just
he was
like,
very
I was like,
nice.
oh yeah, sure, we'll get that in next time. Thank you. But yeah, you never know when that the hotline goes off, and yeah.
So early in the days, I was doing the Dan Shaughnessy show, and Shaughnessy was doing a solo, and this was like super early days of the station where the producer was in the studio, like where Fred originally sat in Brighton.
Okay.
The producer sat in there, and then the second producer would be in the other room answering phones. But you didn't have the ability right away initially to run the board so much from the other room. So I'm in there, and it was a day
What
that
a setup.
the Globe published a story about the crafts and building bridges and taking public money to build bridges over Route 1 and all this. And Shaughnessy goes on air and just starts tearing into the crafts. And I'm like a part-time board op, and he's having a field day with it. The hotline rings. I think the first time it was like, Mike Thomas, like, you need to stop talking about this. You need to tell Shaughnessy to stop talking about this. Like, okay, hang up with him. 2 minutes later, it's like Mark Hannon. Like, you need to tell Shaughnessy to stop talking about this. A few minutes later, hotline again, it's Stacey James from the Patriots. And it's like, I'm like, Dan, we got to move on from this topic.
Was this all like within like 5-10 minutes or something?
Yeah, this is all within like 10 minutes.
Oh God.
Like here I am, like a few months into the sports hub, like just a board op, like running things, and I had to tell Shaughnessy to move on from this topic, and Shaughnessy because the entire station and the Patriots are freaking out. He's having a field day, and like he doesn't have all the facts, he doesn't know this, he doesn't know that. I'm like, and I'm in the studio, like on the phone with him talking right next to me.
Yeah.
Like,
well, see, and that's the other thing too, of like when you're by yourself on the weekends, like you're the one on the phone, you're running like you're trying to answer to all these people, you're talking to the guys on the phone, but then Shaughnessy's still talking, and it's just like, wait, no, stop talking. It's just
like, we need to get to commercial break then, like commercial break.
Yeah.
The hotline's going, like talking to everybody, like you need to get Dan off this topic, like he can't be talking about this. I'm like, who am I to tell Dan Shaughnessy what to talk about?
You're right.
He's been doing this forever.
right.
Yeah, and then you got to rip off that band-aid like, hi Dan, 3 prominent people just told you to move on. And like, what do you mean move on? Or whatever.
They didn't want to talk to him. They're like, you tell him. Like,
exactly. Holy shit, that is wow. And that's just a couple months in, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Those early Shaughnessy days, man. They were especially when like Jones would host those. Those were such like it was like the same format every week because the Shaughnessy show was like such unusual radio because he was in there as the Dan Shaughnessy show, but Jones was supposed to like run it in and out of break, and Jones was supposed to, and Shaughnessy would open up the show, and he would go on a little thing. 60% of the time, he would book a guest for the first segment on his own.
First segment.
So it was like what 2 to 6 on the weekends, and like 2:05 we're throwing to the head coach of BC softball. So like, or like somebody like this, and then he talks to him for a few minutes, and Jones like, all right, the Dan Shaughnessy show. I'm Adam Jones, 617-779-0985. We'll get back. And then they would go to break. And we would be joking. We would have like over-unders every week. When would be the first time Jones would get to say something on air? And it was like 9 minutes past, 12 minutes past.
Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
Back to the Shaughnessy show with maybe an appearance from Jones.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember I was in when the Kraft massage thing went down, and I think it was midday. I was the second producer, and then Mary Mena pops their head in, like, just want to make sure, like, you guys only facts, no speculating. I want to say Arcand was hosting. It was like an Arcand and McCone show for some reason.
I think it was Ted Johnson. Was Ted?
Ted in it? Okay.
I feel like I remember hearing that. I think Ted was in there when it broke.
Maybe Arcand and Ted. Yeah. So that was interesting to say the least. And another one, speaking of phone, like people calling, and this, I think probably the same. This is a couple months in. This is probably the last one I have. I didn't realize at the time, but Zoe called the regular line. I think, it was Jones. Jones was hosting, and I'm like, hey, like I didn't see the name. I didn't see Zoe, Rentham, Scott, whatever. So I'm like, hey, regular 95 Sports Hub, what's your name? What do you want to talk about? And like he's all casual, like it's like everyone knows my voice. Like Zoe's thinking like, hey, tell Jones, blah, 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 blah. Like, all right, thanks. Have a good one. And I hang up on him. He's still talking. I hang up on. I think he's just like some obnoxious caller. So then call right back. I see the screen this time. I see Zolak. And I like somehow like I realize that it's the same caller that just called back. So bear in mind, like I just hung up on him on Zoe. I'm a new guy. So I pick it up. Hello, Sports Hub. It's like, who the fuck is this? What the fuck are you doing hanging up on me? What's your name? I'm like, George. It's like, George, you're fucking done. You hear me? You're done. Like, all right, I'm sorry, Zoe. To see it. I don't think I ever told him that story either, but maybe he tried to get whoever George is fired. Sorry, George, whoever you are. But I'm glad I gave him a fake name. But and then I tell Jones because I'm scared of shit. It's like the second month. I don't know that Zoe's serious or not. He probably isn't, just to scare me. And I'm like, hey, I accidentally hung up on Zoe and now he wants to get me fired. He's like, don't worry about it. So
I hung up on Gronk once.
On Gronk?
Yeah. It was like a mistake. So it was like Jones
was a stupid
and
call?
Kiefer in for Touchman and Rich. And I like went like for the week and I like talked to Dan O'Brien or whoever, like, do you have any scheduled guests this week? Oh, I was like, they're all canceled. So the weekly Gronk appearance when he was doing it, like his rookie or second season, he calls in at his normal time. And I'm like, well, we don't have you scheduled. He was like,
Oh,
oh,
no.
like,
Oh my God.
Oh, Gronk's sad.
yeah, Kronk's like, all right. I'm like, oh, yeah, nobody told me.
Oh, so
So-
you told him no. You
Yeah, I
said,
told him no. Yeah, so pretty much hung
All
up on Gronk. Yeah,
hung up on Gronk. We don't
Yeah.
want to talk to you, Gronk. All right.
yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, it's not in the format. I just follow the clock, man.
Yeah, good luck with your career. I hear you might be a good player.
I think you're all right. Yeah, and obviously he wasn't. Well, no, he had an incredible rookie year, I think, right? Yeah, he set the record for like rookie touchdowns or whatever.
I mean, it was like it had to be his rookie or second season. Like it was early on in his career.
Okay.
He was in like because he was still doing weekly appearances on the Sports Hub, which a couple years in he would never be doing that.
Right. Yeah, that's built for guys like, no offense, but Nate Solder, David Andrews, linemen who are very good, but
Yep.
it's like they're linemen. I'm sorry. So it's like get the 10th most important person on the player on the team.
Just one of that plays. Just, as long as they're on the field, we'll take
Yeah,
them.
give me someone that has some snap count sometimes.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
always exciting to talk to like former like it's like if Drew Bledsoe called in, or like I had to call Willie McGinnis to be like, hey, are you still good for this time? I'm like, oh, I'm talking to Will. Like, what? I was like, who am I? Or like Troy Brown. I remember it was Troy Brown and Marshall Hook Christmas Eve, and I was producing.
I was
I'm
there.
like texting with Troy. I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, it's things like that. But because like even when we worked with like Ted Johnson and stuff too, it's like they're all like all those guys they're just regular guys.
The
at the end
most
of the day.
humble
Like,
guys.
you
wouldn't dream
so
it.
cool. So yeah, but and
But
it was
completely the other end of the phones. Remember the night Charlie Sheen came in?
No.
when was that? Was
So,
that
was
still
this-
BCN?
This was a Sports Hub because DA was on and he was doing the Tiger Blood tour and he's at Aganis Arena. And Rich Shirtleaf went and they had like an open question and answer session. And like Rich got up there like, hey, Charlie, you want full control of the biggest station in America tonight? And Charlie's like, yeah, come see my guy. So Rich like got backstage and like was talking to him. We're like, oh yeah, Charlie Sheen's gonna come tonight. They're like, cool. So Rich calls Fred. Fred comes into the studio. Like DA's on air still. Fred comes in and like, cool, yeah, like Charlie Sheen's supposed to come. An hour goes by, there's no Charlie Sheen. DA show wraps up at 11. Fred and Rich jump on from like 11 to 11:30. Like we're expecting Charlie Sheen. We're expecting Charlie Sheen. 11:30, they get off air. Like midnight, his bus pulls up, but there's a crowd of people. He doesn't want to get off the bus. So we finally get Charlie Sheen in the studio. He comes downstairs. He's just ripping cigarettes, and they go live. And it's like from 1 to like 4 or 5 in the morning with Charlie Sheen, and they start talking. They're like, "Oh yeah, who do you want to talk to right now?" So he starts like writing down phone numbers, and phone numbers get passed to me because I was running the board. Like, all right, let's call Martin Sheen. Let's call Emilio. Let's call the guy that he used to work with on 2.5 Men. We talked to I'm calling all these people like, hey, do you want to be on Charlie Sheen radio? He's live in Boston right now. And most of them were like, who the hell is this?
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, Charlie's on air right now. He wants to talk to you. And we finally got Lenny Dykstra.
Yeah.
That was when he was going through some crazy stuff. And he gets on, we get him on air. And there's like banging of like pipes and like noise. And this is like 2 a.m. And they get him on air and like, how you doing? He's like, just happy to be above ground.
Oh, Jesus.
Like that was like the craziest night in like the Sports Hub.
I think that was before my time. I feel like I heard stories about it, but I think that was before I got there.
I never heard that at all. That's incredible.
But yeah, he was on, and then because this was one that was owned by CBS Radio, and he was like in a big fight with CBS. So it was on live, and then Toucher and Rich like replayed it during their shift, like the 6 to 10 a.m. since they had just done midnight. And then it was like never to be spoken of again on air. Like he couldn't even, because he was in a big fight with CBS and we were CBS Radio. So it was.
So they like made it so that he can't come back on. Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, the Charlie Sheen radio night was like wild.
Did you pocket all those numbers? You still have them stored somewhere?
No, I mean,
They're
I was just
probably
getting
all
things
different
like-
numbers now.
Rich was just scrolling through his phone, just like writing down numbers. And here I am calling these people, trying to get them to go on air.
And if they're all in like LA, which I would assume like that's 3 hours, it's still 2 a.m. So it's 11 over there. Like, what the
We were
hell?
like, oh yeah, when was the last time you talked to Amelia? It was like 5 years ago. When was the last time you talked to the guy you're on 2.5 Men? It was like months. And I talked to him. I was like, hey, he's like on the street. He just like finished a Broadway show. He's in New York. He's like,
essentially a
oh
drunk.
no, like it's like I can't do it, but like tell Charlie I say hi. I'm like, oh, you sure you don't want to do it? Because this would be like the biggest story that you two reconcile on air. And it was, yeah,
Essentially drunk calling through the sports hub is what Charlie was doing.
Yep.
That's wild. Yeah. That is awesome.
And he was just ripping cigarettes the whole time.
I don't doubt it.
Oh man, the Charlie Sheen stories.
Oh man. So we have reached an hour out of nowhere already. Is there anything else left unsaid that you feel you want to get off your chest? We talked about everything. We talked about the real stuff that happened in the last couple of weeks, behind the scenes stories. Yeah,
I still have like more stories I could share about like with like my experiences with people, but like I can say that for another time. But like it's like we all have stories with like our friendships with certain people or whatever. Like we could talk about people who have helped us. We could, but I won't start that now. But
crazy times at the Loon.
Yeah, like things like that, like hanging out and just stuff that doesn't have outside the station.
What are they really like out of the station? And spoiler alert, I think they're the same as they are on air.
Yeah. Everybody's mostly the same,
except for Jones. Jones is obviously the nicest guy, and like second to Rich now. Rich is the most philanthropist guy in the station for sure.
I mean, Fred was always a weird one outside the station, and I mean that in the nicest way. But Fred on there will talk to literally hours and hours and hours, not stop, and then outside the station, he's just like.
He's like silent.
Yeah.
Fred knew me when he saw me, but he could always forget my name. Like, and I'm like, it's okay. Like one year at the Christmas party, it was a couple years, I don't know how many years ago, but he came up to me at the bar. And he's just like, I am so sorry. And he just like gives me a hug. He's like, I'm so sorry. He goes, I know who you are, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I forget your name. And he was just like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's okay. It's like, I only picked you up from your house, to go to the golf tournaments, all that stuff. But, we had special bonding time, at 6 a.m. going to those golf, the Deutsche Bank Championship. So that's what it was.
Oh, so the stories I have driving people for Toucher and Rich.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
There was a skit like, who are you? Like, let's have Fred like try to find out.
Hardy,
and I think
Hardy put that all together. That was actually pretty good. Yeah.
I think I want to say I was producing that show because I remember coming back with the who are you? And like Rich gave me a look like, hey, like good use of that there. But yeah, that was because you said the same thing. Like I drove you, yada yada, and Fred's like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
What's the stories, Josh, of driving? Any one particular you wanna share?
Oh, so this was still in the BCN days. I won't go into too many details. I'll just set it up. But they did a thing with Adolfo where they were trying to it was The Bachelor, but they called it The Bachelor, and they sent him out on dates with girls. And I was a chaperone for a couple of those dates, and one of them was a nerdy date. We went to Cambridge, and like. I had to go out with Adolfo and be like the station representative. And then another time it was the sexy date where I drove BCN like Suburban filled with like Fred, Crash, Adolfo, this girl, 2 salespeople down to the strip club in Brockton.
Oh, wow.
Brockton. Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like now we're getting
the Foxy lady in Brockton, and there's like all these rules about like, well, when you get there, you can't park the station vehicle in the parking lot. So you have to park in another park. You can drop them off. But you can...
What?
Yeah.
Those random rules there.
So I had to go to
we don't want to be
all
affiliated.
them just like crushing beers and beverages and then drive them all home.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the ride home must have been memorable.
It was something.
Yikes. That sounds awesome. Just
the
being the
things that got
designated
paid
driver.
to do, man.
Yeah. It's like, no, we're not stopping at Taco Bell, guys. We got to get home. Stop. Just like treating them like they're children. Yikes. That's funny. No, none. I never got in a company vehicle, unfortunately. Never.
Oh, I whipped around in those things all the time when I was on the street team.
On the street team?
Oh, yeah.
The big Yukon and oh God, yeah.
Oh,
going back to the BCN, the old BCN diesel Hummer.
Oh wow.
Wow.
That thing, it was I did it this one time, and the thing didn't go over 55 miles per hour, and they sent me down to like the Brockton Fair to the demolition derby. Like, we want you to go out, have the DJ in the car with a microphone, and just start blowing donuts in this all-terrain, all-wheel drive Hummer that's designed to just like plow through anything. Like, you can go out there, just start blowing donuts. I'm like, all right. So I like got it, and I'm like trying to like pull the e-brake, and the thing's just cruising. It doesn't like
Imagine
this is the most
Imagine
underwhelming performance.
getting paid for this. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
big street team money. So what, like $12 an hour at the
Oh,
time?
12, yeah. But like some of my like I don't know, like street team stuff got kind of wild. It was fun. Like those were really like my best like stories sometimes. Just getting to a promo or like the drives out to a certain place or something, like something stupid. Like that's why it's hard to explain those if people don't know like who else is involved or whatever. It's
Yeah, now that you say it like that, I'm a little bit jealous. Like maybe I'd like to be on maybe I should have started at the street team and then worked my way as a producer, because that's just the experience that you're just having fun. You're just hanging out with a bunch of crazy people.
Yeah, you just hand people t-shirts for drinking Bud Light. It's like, here, drink a Bud Light, get a t-shirt, get this, get that. Like it was but got old after a while.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like you can't live that life for too long. Maybe you can. I don't know. Depends on a certain type of people.
All right.
Oh man, this was fun, guys.
It was.
Appreciate it.
I will. I'll be down at the brewery soon. I'm just finishing up my my sober month. I did a little break from
Sober October.
Sober October. So I'm gonna have my first cocktail on Saturday again. So
there you go. You're turning
make my way down to Idle Hands soon.
I'll do a shameless plug. If you want the real stories of everybody on the air, the stuff I can't say on air, I work Wednesday nights.
Idle Hands.
Come see me at Idle Hands Craft Ales in Malden on Wednesdays, and I'll tell you everything.
Yeah, there's definitely more.
If that's not, thrilling enough, just get there right now, have a beer with Josh, and hear some crazy stories.
Yeah.
But times at the Sports Hub BCN and everything in between.
I mean, I'll tell you what I really think of Mason.
Yes. Yeah. I have a feeling he hates my guts in real life. Yeah, I think so. But no, I appreciate you joining us, Kristen, as well. Thank you so much. This is a pleasure. And if anything comes up between now and then, maybe we'll do this again. Plenty of times. It's tales behind the glass.
We got plenty of people to add on the show now. It's a growing list of.
That's awful.
It's like people go on the Dan Patrick show once they leave ESPN. This is going to be the new.
Yeah. If the cuts continue, we'll have guests forever on the on the Tales Behind the Glass Sports Hub / whatever we're calling this show.
It's going to change every week, every time.
Yeah, probably. All right. For Josh Daring, Kristen Surman, I'm Mason Sousa. Thanks for watching. I guess